So, in today's video, I wanted to discuss some of the pain points that people experience when it comes to their personal finances. What stops them from getting their finances right? If you don't know me, my name is Regina, and I talk all things personal finance, coming to you from a perspective of someone who has made ordinary income most of their life and has built extraordinary wealth. Think the perspective of a millionaire potentially next door to you can be helpful. And so I'm sharing my thoughts and opinions on what I perceive on all different topics of personal finance. So, pain points. Let's get into it. I'm going to cover a few today. And the first one would be budgeting and tracking. I think there's a stigma around budgeting. A lot of people perceive it as to be restrictive, that they're going to put themselves in a box of how much they could spend. And it's also a daunting task. Where do they start? What do they do? And then the tracking itself, it is an ongoing process. So it's a lot of work, or that's the perception that people see. So that would be the first one, how to get around that. When it comes to budgeting, you could do it the opposite approach. You could simply write down what you're spending as things happen. I know that's the same thing as tracking. But as you pay a bill, write it down on a piece of paper and put it in a category of needs if it falls into needs, or put it in a category of wants if it is discretionary spending of any sort. And if you're unsure, put it in the middle category. So something like groceries. Maybe groceries doesn't have to be as much as you spent, and it could be a category that you look at completely. So you could break it down into 3 categories, or you could just put letters next to the spending. So for instance, as you pay your rent, that would be a need and that would be a fixed cost. So there's not really much you can do about that except move. So that would be a need category. But when it comes to picking up breakfast or lunch out, that is a need and a want. So you'd probably throw that in the middle category. Make sense? So then at the end of the month, you actually add up all those different categories and you see what your fixed costs are and some of what your variable costs are, and then your discretionary spending, and see how well you're doing. And then you simply figure out your income. How did you do? Sometimes in the beginning, it's better to track how you're doing before you set yourself in a budget. So there is no restriction. Spend the way you would spend and then go from there, as opposed to saying, geez, I'm only going to spend $50 this month on shoes, if that would be the example. So budgeting and tracking, definitely a pain point, but it doesn't have to be. There's also a lot of apps and people get confused about their technology, which one to use. Sometimes when we are presented with too much choice, that itself creates a problem. But tried and true is paper and pen. You don't have to have some fancy Excel charts. You could just write everything down and keep track of your expenses that way. Sometimes I do that myself, to be honest, just to keep track, because your expenses do change. The next thing that is a pain point is debt. People have accumulated debt, and so having a debt payoff can be a pain point. Sometimes people just open their credit cards, they look at the amount that they owe, and it feels overwhelming. And to be confronted with the fact of how much debt they have, avoidance is often what happens. So definitely a pain point when it comes to getting finances on track. And this leads back to the first one. They realize that, wow, I'm going to have to rip the Band-Aid off and actually look at what's going on. In this case, you actually don't even have to do that as well. You could simply try to take as much money as you can and throw it towards that debt. And in the beginning, I don't even know if I actually tracked immediately. I think I tracked after I was trying to pay some of the debt down. So it's not a necessity that you all of a sudden go into budget mode. And yes, there's opinions, strong ones, on whether you should do the debt snowball or the debt avalanche. I personally don't care. I think what matters most is that you're paying the debt itself. A lot of people do like to feel victory, and so they will pay the smaller ones off first because then it feels like at least they got something paid, and then start attacking the bigger one. It doesn't matter. It's the important thing is about what you're doing. But yeah, there's some psychological benefit about paying the debt. I don't know if it's the snowball method versus the avalanche. I think the avalanche is you look at the interest rates and you pay the one with the most interest rate first, the highest, because that debt will accumulate faster. But they say that if you're attacking the snowball method, even with the smaller ones, the snowball gets bigger, and then you take that extra cash and throw it at the debt. I know when I did it, I believe I did the approach of the snowball because I had some student loans that were smaller, but I treated each debt as their own debt. So I had car payments, I had credit card debt, and I had student loans. So each one of them was separately, and I was treating them as their own and looking at the amount that I could come up with by working extra to be able to pay off those debts. And then as I started to see some progress, I think that's when I actually started to budget. So debt is the second area that is a pain point that makes people not want to look at their finances. They don't want to, sometimes it could be extremely painful to see where you are, to actually know that you have a negative net worth, meaning that you owe more money than you're worth, that you need your paycheck just to be able to pay off the debt. And that if you were to stop working, that debt would be accumulating and you would be in the negative. So, yeah, definite pain point. Another pain point that stops people from personal finance or pursuing their personal finance is they have a hard time with saving consistently. That is a little bit more on the positive end because at least if they're not accumulating debt and they're not living beyond their means, the saving consistently, sometimes some months you save, other months you don't. That again, having a budget and seeing where your money going, setting plans for yourself and goals for yourself to actually hit target points. I also think savings brings on savings. So when you start to do the saving muscle and you set up accounts in a certain way that you're automatically saving, it's going to start to happen naturally. And then especially if you're seeing that you put your money in a high yield online account where it's a little bit more difficult to get to, and you're seeing the interest coming to you, that's rewarding. What I did early on is I set my paycheck to go into 3 different accounts. One went to purely pay the bills. The other went for my spending money so that I kept myself within budget without actually being on a budget. And the third went to automatic savings. So it went into an account that which was then therefore funneled out of in my investment accounts, would deduct from that account and funnel it into different investments and savings. So saving consistently can be a struggle. I think how you set up your accounts, if you have automatically done it work where your paycheck is split into 3 different parts or even 2, that can be done manually for you so that the work is done for you. That's what I did early on. And I think employers allow you to put 3 bank accounts in for your paychecks if you're working like a corporate job. If you're not, then you'll have to manually do this stuff for yourself. But you can set up automatic rules where, let's say, Vanguard takes out monthly for you to put into savings and investments. And even a brokerage account, money market account, you'll get more than the average interest rate in a normal savings account, which is usually pathetically low. Okay, the next pain point that people have is investing. Investing can be seen as a small hurdle to beginners because they don't know what to do. There's just so many words thrown out there, and it can be daunting to even think about. What do I do? Do I open a Vanguard? Do I open a Fidelity? Some of these words are thrown around. Do I save my money and buy real estate property? What do I do? There's a lot of research. There's a lot of books out there. In this case, I think it has to be your goals. What would you be saving for? If you already own a home, then chances are that money is going to be earmarked for your future. If you are trying to buy a home, then you probably want to be able to make sure that you're not actually investing it in the stock market. Maybe in this case, you're putting it in high yield savings account as you build up your account. Anything you're going to use within 5 years might not necessarily make sense to put it in the stock market. That said, there should always be a portion of your income that should be saved. So even as you're saving for a home, it's actually a good thing to still be saving on the side to be growing investments. And there are a lot of books that you can get from the library. There are things on the internet that you could read about simple strategies. And there's even a great book, I think it's called Simple Path to Wealth, that can help you with getting yourself on track for simply saving and investing. Not everyone needs to become a real estate mogul, and real estate itself probably takes a lot more education than investing does, particularly if you're going to be investing in the overall market versus picking individual stocks, which itself is riskier. Anyway, these are a number of the pain points that people experience. There are others that include, like, a big pain point for people is unexpected expenses, the living paycheck to paycheck that some people experience, which again, a budget can help fix that. Debt, paying off debt and saving can fix that as well. Taxes are another one. People are confused and it's a pain point for them, but that's usually later on, trying to understand taxes. Financially preparing for the future is another one. And emotionally spending money is a big pain point for folks as well. So a lot of different pain points, but what I perceive is stopping people from getting their finances right is usually has to do with debt, building a budget, saving, and investing, learning about investing. So those 4 things are different pain points. I hope this video finds you well, and I'm about to head off on vacation. So it's been a really busy week for me. Sorry I didn't have a video before this one. And I hope everyone's having a great day, and I will catch you on the next one.